At Thanksgiving dinner, my cousins were handed yachts, penthouses, and millions, while I got a crumpled envelope. They laughed until they saw what was inside. A key, not to treasure, but to a rotting farmhouse at the edge of my grandfather's estate. But when I opened that door, I found someone waiting, and what if discovered would make my cousins regret ever mocking me. Before we continue, be part of our growing family by hitting that subscribe button. And here's something fun. Share your name and tell us where you're tuning in from in the comments. We might feature you with a shout out in our next video, because your support truly means the world to us. Now, let's proceed. Thanksgiving dinner at my grandfather's mansion was always a production. Long tables polished to a mirror shine, chandeliers burning like suns above, and an army of servers weaving through the family as if we were royalty. But this year was different. This year, there were gifts. Real gifts. My cousin Derek was first. Grandpa stood, tall despite his age, cane in hand, voice carrying like it always had when he was still the king of his empire. "Derek," he announced, "you have ambition. You'll need a vessel worthy of your travels." A butler stepped forward with an envelope. Inside, deeds to a 70-foot yacht. Derek smirked, smug as he held it aloft, and applause broke out around the table. Cameras flashed, cousins shouted, wine glasses clinked. Then it was Jessica's turn. Grandpa gave her a penthouse overlooking the city skyline. She squealed, hugged him, and promised to throw the best parties anyone had ever seen. Her Instagram story went live before the applause had even died down. Then came Martin, Grandpa's favorite, the golden boy. He opened his envelope and froze, eyes wide as if he'd been handed a piece of the sun itself. $5 million. Not stocks, not bonds. Hard cash in numbered accounts. The room thundered with approval. One by one, my cousins bathed in wealth, each gift bigger than the last. I clapped politely, smiled when required, but every cheer was a knife in my ribs. And then, finally, all eyes turned to me. Grandpa's cane struck the floor once. "And now," he said, "your turn." A butler placed an envelope in my hands. But this one wasn't crisp or golden. It was crumpled, torn at the edges, the flap bent as though it had been pulled from a forgotten drawer. My stomach dropped. I opened it. Inside was no deed, no check, no contract. Just a single rusted key taped to a piece of yellowing paper. A scrawled note read, "Farmhouse, Eastern Border." Silence lasted one breath. Then Derek laughed. Loud. Cruel. "An old shed? That's it." Jessica joined in, choking on her wine as she doubled over. Martin raised his glass and smirked. Guess someone's the black sheep after all. The laughter spread like fire around the table. Uncles, aunts, even the servers fought to keep straight faces. Phones came out. My humiliation streamed, snapped, and recorded in real time. My face burned, but I didn't let my hand shake. I closed the envelope, slipped the key into my pocket, and forced a smile. "Thank you, Grandpa." But inside, something sharp was twisting. Not sadness, not shame, rage, pure and focused. They thought it was funny. They thought I'd been tossed scraps while they dined on banquets. But I knew one thing. Grandpa never did anything without reason. He wasn't senile, he wasn't careless. That key meant something, and whatever it unlocked, I would find it. I endured the rest of dinner, their mocking toasts, their whispered jokes. Derek leaned across the table once and muttered, "Don't lose that key. Might get you a free hayride." Jessica filmed me in secret, whispering, "Smile, farmer boy." I smiled. I let them have their moment. Because revenge tastes better after the laughter dies. When the feast ended and the cousins paraded off to celebrate their fortunes, I slipped away, envelope still in my pocket. Outside, the air was sharp with cold, the night heavy with silence. I stood beneath the old oaks at the edge of the estate and stared east, toward the dark outline of forgotten land. That's when I whispered it for the first time. They laughed tonight, but one day they'll beg. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the key in my hand, its rust cutting against my skin, its weight heavier than any yacht, penthouse, or millions. At dawn, when the first gray light split the horizon, I rose, dressed, and started walking. The estate stretched for miles, manicured lawns giving way to wild fields the cousins never cared to see. Birds stirred in the hedgerows, mist curling along the ground. My shoes grew wet with dew as I trudged east, further and further, until the grand mansion was a speck behind me. Finally, I saw it. The farmhouse. It crouched on the horizon like a dying animal. Roofs sagging, windows boarded, vines strangling the walls. Paint peeled, wood warped, doors hanging like broken jaws. It was abandoned, forgotten, left to rot. I gripped the key tighter. My cousins would never set foot here, never waste their time with ruins. That's why this was mine. And if Grandpa thought this was a joke, if he wanted me humiliated, then fine. I'd take his joke and twist it into a blade. I reached the door, rusted lock waiting, key trembling in my hand. I slid it in. It fit perfectly. The door creaked. And then, inside, in the dim light of dawn, I saw him. A man, sitting patiently, as though he had been waiting for me not for hours, not for days, but for centuries. His eyes were sharp, ancient, unblinking. His hands rested on a cane carved from black wood. When he spoke, his voice was low, heavy with something older than time. "I've been waiting for you." The man's voice filled the empty farmhouse as if the walls themselves had been waiting to echo it. "I've been waiting for you." I froze at the threshold, my hand still clutching the key, heart thundering like a drum. He wasn't some squatter. His posture was too deliberate, his stare too sharp. He looked as if he belonged here, as if I was the intruder. His clothes were old, older than my grandfather's, a style that belonged in sepia photographs, a dark waistcoat, linen shirt, and boots polished though the farmhouse floor was coated in dust. His hair, silver-streaked with black, hung just past his shoulders, and his cane was carved from black wood that gleamed in the dim light. "Who are you?" I demanded. "How did you get in here?" He didn't answer. Instead, he gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit. You've had a long walk." Every instinct told me to leave, but the way he looked at me, like a hawk regarding prey, froze my legs. Slowly, I stepped inside. The floor creaked, dust stirred. I lowered myself into the chair opposite him. The farmhouse wasn't empty. Not exactly. Beneath the decay, there was order. A table sanded smooth, 2 chairs facing each other, and on the wall, faded maps of the estate. Landscapes marked with red ink, boundaries and notes scrawled in a hand I didn't recognize. The man studied me, his eyes unblinking. "You are angry." I swallowed. "Wouldn't you be? My cousin's got millions. I got this." I held up the key, bitter laugh catching in my throat. "This place. This joke." At that, the man smiled faintly, though there was no warmth in it. "A joke? You think you were punished. Weren't I?" He leaned forward. His voice dropped into a growl that seemed to shake the walls. "No. You were chosen." I blinked. "Chosen for what?" He tapped his cane against the floor once. "To inherit what they cannot. To wield what they would waste. Power, real power, cannot be handed to the spoiled. It must be sharpened by fire." His gaze bored into me until I looked away, ashamed that he could see the truth of it. The bitterness coiled inside me like a serpent. "My name is Elias," he said finally. "I was bound to this place long before you were born. Long before your cousins learned to sneer." "Bound?" I asked. Elias ignored the question. Instead, he lifted a hand and pointed toward the wall of maps. "This land, your family's empire, was not built on yachts or penthouses. It was built on soil, on rivers, on secrets buried where only the patient can dig. And that farmhouse key, it is not just a door to wood and dust. It is a door to all of it." I stared at the maps. I saw notes about water rights, about mineral veins beneath the soil, about boundaries that stretched far beyond the manicured lawns of my grandfather's mansion. "What does this have to do with me?" I asked. Elias's expression hardened. "Because your cousins laughed." His words struck like a blade. He leaned closer. "They mocked you, stripped you of dignity before the family, before strangers. Tell me, What did you feel when they laughed? I clenched my fists. My jaw ached. I wanted to burn the whole table down. Elias's eyes gleamed. Good. Rage is honest. Rage is the fire that forges steel. But unshaped, it consumes the one who carries it. If you let me, I will show you how to shape it. I will show you how to make them kneel. For a moment, the farmhouse seemed to pulse with his words, the air heavier, thicker. I could hear the laughter of my cousins ringing in my ears again, the clinking of their glasses, the smug looks. My humiliation burned as fresh as if I were back at that table. I swallowed hard. And what do you want in return? Elias leaned back, smile curling. Only that you listen, that you learn, that you do not waste what I give you as they wasted theirs. He lifted his cane and pointed at the floorboards beneath us. Your cousins think they own fortunes. But the truth of the estate lies here. Beneath this soil, beneath this farmhouse, lies the root of it all. Whoever controls it, controls them. My breath caught. This ruin, this joke, was no punishment. It was a weapon. Elias's voice dropped into a whisper that slid like a knife between my ribs. Say it with me. They laughed at you at the table. One day, they will beg at your door. The words tasted like fire on my tongue. I whispered them back. They laughed at me at the table. One day, they'll beg at my door. Elias's eyes flared, as if he had been waiting centuries to hear it. Good, he said. Then the lesson begins. The farmhouse groaned suddenly, as if alive. Floorboards shifted, dust rained from the rafters. A sound like stone grinding against stone rose from below us. Elias tapped his cane once more, and the floor beneath my chair began to split, a dark opening yawning wide. Welcome, he said softly, to the true inheritance. The floor yawned open beneath me, with splitting to reveal a spiral staircase carved into stone. Cold air rose from the depths, damp and ancient, carrying the scent of earth and iron. Elias rose to his feet without effort, his cane tapping against the ground. Come, he said. Your cousins inherit glass towers. You inherit the foundation. I hesitated. My cousins were probably still asleep in silk sheets, dreaming of yachts and private jets. And here I was, about to descend into darkness behind a stranger who claimed to have waited for me. But rage pushed me forward. I followed Elias down. The stairs spiraled for what felt like an eternity, until the faint glow of lanterns appeared along the walls. The air grew colder, heavier, as though we were stepping into another world. Finally, the staircase ended in a vast chamber beneath the farmhouse. I froze. Maps, ledgers, and scrolls lined the walls, stacked in orderly rows. Old chests of iron and oak sat sealed with locks. In the center of the chamber, a table was spread with deeds and contracts, each stamped with my family's crest. And on the far wall, carved into the stone itself, was a motto in Latin, "What is planted endures." Elias watched me take it in. His eyes gleamed. This is the true estate. Your grandfather knew. His father before him knew. But knowledge like this cannot be given to the pampered. It must be guarded until one comes with the hunger to use it. I stepped toward the table. My hand brushed across a leather-bound ledger. Names, numbers, and signatures filled the pages. Water rights, mineral deeds, titles to farmland stretching further than I imagined. My cousins' gifts, their penthouses and millions, suddenly felt small. They had been given fruit. I was staring at the roots. Elias's voice cut through the silence. Do you see now? With this, you can own them all. Strip them of their toys. Make their yachts rot at anchor. Make their towers crumble from lack of water. They laughed at you. Now you hold the throat of their empire. A part of me trembled at the thought. Another part thrilled. Elias stepped closer, his voice dropping into a growl. But first, you must learn the mantra. I turned to him. The mantra? He tapped his cane against the stone floor, each strike echoing like a drumbeat. Repeat after me. They mock me at the table. They will kneel at my door. The words filled the chamber, heavy as chains. They mocked me at the table. I whispered. They will kneel at my door. Again, Elias commanded. I spoke louder. They mocked me at the table. They will kneel at my door. Again. I shouted it, the chamber trembling with my voice. They mocked me at the table. They will kneel at my door. Elias's eyes burned with approval. He leaned in close, his breath sharp with the scent of smoke and iron. Good. Remember this. Rage unfocused burns only you. Rage sharpened makes the world burn for you. The words settled into me like steel. I thought of Derek's smug grin, Jessica's cruel laughter, Martin's smirk. I saw them drowning in champagne, flashing money that wasn't theirs, mocking me while recording my humiliation for strangers to enjoy. No more. I slammed my hand on the table, sending dust flying. Teach me. Show me how to use this. Elias smiled for the first time, but it wasn't kind. It was the smile of a wolf that had found its heir. Good. Then you will learn not only to control land, but to control people. The soil binds the food they eat, the water they drink, the homes they build. Control the roots, and you control their lives. He moved to the far wall, pulling down a heavy ledger bound in iron clasps. He set it on the table and opened it. Pages filled with names stretched out before me. Contracts signed by powerful men long dead, but still binding. The ink was faded, but the weight of it was real. These are not gifts, Elias said. They are chains. Every signature ties someone to this land. Your cousins may laugh with their millions, but their wealth rests on contracts they don't even know exist. And now you hold them. I traced a finger across the ink, the names curling like ghosts. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about inheritance. It was about domination. What do I do with this? I asked. Elias placed a hand on my shoulder. His grip was iron. You wait. You let them believe they are kings. And then, when they are drunk on their riches, you pull the ground from beneath them. Revenge is not in the strike. It is in the silence before the strike, the moment when they realize you held the blade all along. I shivered, but it wasn't fear. It was hunger. Elias released me and gestured toward the stone staircase. Go now. Return to them. Let them mock you one more time. Let them believe you are nothing. It will make their fall sweeter. I turned, clutching the image of Derek's laugh, Jessica's smirk, Martin's smug eyes. One day, they'd kneel. But before I could step onto the stairs, a sound rang from above. The creak of the farmhouse door. Elias's eyes snapped to the ceiling, his smile vanishing. Someone has come. The creak of the farmhouse door above froze me in place. My breath hitched, heart pounding as dust rained from the ceiling. Elias didn't move at first. He just listened, head tilted, as footsteps crept across the wooden floorboards above. Finally, he muttered, "Too soon. They were not meant to find this place yet." I whispered back, "Who is it?" Elias's eyes narrowed. "Go. See for yourself." I climbed the spiral staircase, each step groaning beneath me. When I reached the top, the farmhouse was dim with early light streaming through cracks in the boards. At the door stood Derek, my cousin. He smirked when he saw me. Well, playing house in the ruins, are we? My gut twisted. Of all people, it had to be him. He strolled inside, expensive leather shoes kicking dust, wearing a jacket that probably cost more than the entire farmhouse. "Thought I'd check on you," Derek said, voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Word is you got a shack for your inheritance. Wanted to see how the farmer life's treating you." I forced myself to stay calm, even as rage boiled inside me. "What are you doing here, Derek?" He pulled out his phone, already recording. "Content, cousin. People love the video of you opening that pathetic envelope. Can't wait to show them where you live now. Maybe I'll title it, From Mansion to Mud Hut." My fists clenched, but Elias's voice echoed in my memory. Rage unfocused burns only you. Rage sharpened makes the world burn for you. So I forced a smile. "Go ahead. Record all you want. But careful what you capture. You might show more than you intend." Derek laughed, shaking his head. "Always so serious. You should lighten up. Not your fault Grandpa never liked you. Some of us are cut out for greatness, some aren't." His arrogance lit a fire in me, but I swallowed it down. Instead, I asked, "Tell me something, Derek. What's it like owning a yacht you can't maintain?" The smile slipped from his face. I I continued, stepping closer. Fuel costs, docking fees, crew salaries. It must be expensive. But you'll figure it out, right? You're great with money. He stiffened. What do you know about it? Enough, I said softly, almost to myself. Enough to know that the foundation always outlasts the crown. Before he could reply, Elias's cane struck the floorboards below. The sound was faint but sharp, like a warning bell. I knew what it meant. Patience. Not yet. So I let Derek laugh again, let him film the broken beams, the peeling paint. He thought he was humiliating me, but every second, I memorized his smirk, storing it for the day I'd wipe it from his face. When he finally left, tossing over his shoulder, "Enjoy your shack, cousin," I descended back into the chamber. Elias stood waiting, his expression unreadable. "You let him leave," he said. I nodded. "You told me to wait." Elias's mouth curved into something between approval and warning. "Good. Restraint is the whetstone of vengeance. But soon, you will strike." That strike came faster than I expected. A week later, another family gathering filled Grandpa's mansion. This one wasn't Thanksgiving, just another excuse for the cousins to flaunt their newfound fortunes. The dining hall glittered with crystal and gold, laughter echoing through the vaulted ceilings. Jessica wore a diamond necklace that could blind. Martin bragged about hiring a private chef. Derek showed off-yacht photos, already sunburned from his first trip to the coast. I sat quietly at the far end of the table, sipping water while they drank champagne. Finally, Grandpa tapped his cane, silencing the room. His eyes swept across the family. "You've each received gifts. Tell me, what have you done with them?" The cousins were eager. Jessica boasted about luxury parties, Derek about his travels, Martin about investments that sounded impressive but vague. Each answer dripped with vanity, with shallow pride. Then Grandpa's gaze turned to me. "And you?" The room fell silent. Dozens of eyes burned into me. I saw Derek smirk, Jessica's smothered laugh, Martin's raised brow. I set my glass down carefully. "I've been learning," I said. Derek snorted. "Learning how to milk cows?" Laughter rippled through the table. But I didn't flinch. I looked straight at Grandpa. "I've been learning that fruit rots. Parties end. Yachts sink. But the land beneath all of it, the soil, the water, the roots, that endures. That's what I was given. The foundation. And one day, all of you will see that it was the only gift worth having." The laughter died. Derek's smirk faltered. Jessica shifted in her seat. Martin frowned. Grandpa's face remained unreadable. Slowly, he leaned back, tapping his cane once against the floor. The sound echoed like thunder. And then he smiled. But it wasn't a kind smile. It was sharp, deliberate, as if he knew something the others didn't. Before anyone could speak, a servant entered the hall, pale and trembling. He leaned to whisper in Grandpa's ear. Whatever he said, it made Grandpa's eyes blaze. He rose slowly, cane striking the marble with each step. "Enough games. It is time you all saw the truth of what you inherited." The room fell into stunned silence. My cousins looked confused, nervous. Grandpa's gaze turned to me. "Bring them to the farmhouse. Tonight." The barn-quiet night wrapped the farmhouse in a cloak of expectation. Lantern light painted the walls in gold. The ledger on the table glinted where I'd left it open. Names, clauses, seals that smelled faintly of iron and old smoke. Outside, the gravelly rumble of expensive cars announced the family's arrival. Engines and laughter and the rustle of silk and money. They came because Grandpa had commanded it. They came because curiosity and hubris are twin beasts that bite hard when the master calls. They streamed up the path like a parade of peacocks, strutted into my ruined house with all the entitlement of men who never scraped a blight off a boot. And for the first time that night, I felt them looking small beneath the rafters. They were the ones who'd laughed. Tonight, the laugh would leave their throats. Grandpa took his seat at the head of our meager table as if this were always meant to be his dais. He looked smaller than he had at the mansion, closer to the soil in his face, as if the earth itself had claimed him back. but his eyes burned with a patient cruelty that set my teeth on edge. The cousins clustered together, their gifts glittering like spoiled fruit. Derek tried the same old smirk. Jessica posed already for an imagined social post, and Martin shifted his weight as if waiting for applause. My palms itched by the ledger, by the iron-bound book that held the estate's secret skeleton. Elias sat opposite me, a shadow carved from patience. He did not speak, but his presence was the hinge on which the whole room swung. Grandpa's voice cut through the air like a ledger's slit. "You were given presents," he said. "I gave them what they could spend. I gave you what you must steward." His cane tapped the wood, 3 deliberate strikes, and a servant stepped forward with envelopes, each bearing the family crest. He handed them to the cousins with the civility of a judge reading a sentence. They opened them with the practiced glee of children unwrapping toys. Inside, copies of contracts, translations of clauses, annotations. Faces that had been confident minutes before shifted. Derek's skin went pale at a single sentence. Jessica's hand fluttered to her throat as if something squeezed. Martin's jaw worked as he read, the arrogance draining like sunlight from a room. The contracts were cruelly simple and exquisitely legal. By accepting the items, by signing the receipts, by endorsing the trust disbursements, they had implicitly agreed to certain stewardship conditions embedded in a chain of old agreements. The yachts, penthouses, the $5 million, gifts routed through trusts and holding companies, were conditioned on the beneficiaries maintaining a standard that included contributing to the estate's long-term welfare, upholding water rights, and honoring agricultural covenants. Failure to comply did not merely incur fines. The clauses reactivated dormant liens and restructured ownership to prioritize the land's underlying agreements. When combined with the older deeds Elias had revealed, the cousins' flashy acquisitions were tethered to the farmhouse's foundations like balloons to a dead anchor. They had been given fruit with a hidden root. In the light of the ledger, their fortunes were not unassailable. They were built on agreements they had glossed over, signatures they had dismissed. "Why didn't you tell us?" Derek demanded, voice fracturing between anger and a newly naked fear. "You could have warned us." Grandpa smiled, a slow, terrible thing that looked like the cracking of ice. "Warned you of what? That your toys were strings tied to the house your grandfather thought you wouldn't understand? No. I wanted to see who would steward the estate and who would squander it. You bet on ease. You chose spectacle. That has consequences." He turned to me, and for the first time I saw something I hadn't expected, not just pride, but a grudging respect. He chose to learn. He chose patience. He chose hunger. Elias rose then, slow as a tide. He spoke without theatrics. "These are not simply legal papers. They are leverage, the sort this family has used to build palaces and ships. They were meant to be a tool for someone who could resist the easy gleam and use it to carve stability." He placed his cane on the table and tapped the ledger. "You have the patience to make them kneel. You have the mind to make them remember how to ask." The cousins' outrage turned to frantic bargaining. Jessica tried sobs, petulant, manufactured, a play for sympathy. Martin offered a portion of his funds. Derek begged in a voice that had never known supplication, offering deals and partnerships and promises. They spilled apologies like cheap wine, viscous and strained. Outside, I could hear the rustle of lawyers' suits, the shuffle of phones. They were used to buying their way out. They were used to the quick fixes finance could supply. But the ledger was not about money that could be tossed back and forth like poker chips. It named obligations that had time and law woven together. It called for stewardship, for duties that required dirt under fingernails and seasons of patience. They had no practice in those currencies. When the pleading failed, because the clauses were precise, because old contracts are merciless, and because Grandpa had ensured the trustees would enforce the stipulations, the cousins unraveled. The yachts were put on administrative hold. The penthouse complex was flagged by its management. Accounts were temporarily frozen pending audit. Social media erupted with sudden whispers as their public images slipped. They looked at me like predators who'd been trapped, bewildered that the prey they'd mocked had sprung the snare. Derek's posture collapsed in a heap of ruined bravado. Jessica's teeth ground until they nearly shattered. Martin's investment charts were suddenly numbers without a pulse. I should have felt triumph then. Pure, triumphant justice. Instead, I felt the weight of what Elias had taught me. Vengeance tastes of iron if it is only retribution. Power tasted different when you realized you could shape lives, bend fortunes, and also grant mercy. Grandpa watched me, waiting for my next move, and Elias's eyes were unreadable. The cousins, once so loud and mocking, now whispered like frightened children around the hearth. They wanted me to render judgment, to humiliate or to help, to cancel or to mentor. The ledger lay between us like a blade and a bread loaf at once, both instrument of taking and seedbed for sowing. I rose slowly, palms steady despite the tremor in my chest. The room inhaled. I remembered the mantra that had been forged in the stone chamber, the one I had spoken until it carved grooves into my bones. They mocked me at the table. They will kneel at my door. I thought of the laughter and the cameras, of silk and scorn. I thought of Elias's patient tutelage, the night's learning clauses and canals, of water wells that could withhold supply from towers that would then dry on empty promises. I thought of hunger, my hunger, and the long, slow justice I could mete out, precise and cold. I stepped forward and placed my hand on the ledger. My voice, when I spoke, was low and unyielding. "You will not be destroyed tonight," I said. "You will be taught." The cousins exhaled with confused hope. Grandpa watched like a man who'd finally seen the proof. "You will live under the stewardship clauses. You will walk the fields and learn what your gifts were meant to protect. You will understand the roots of what made those gifts possible. You will work the land, take the oath, and restore what you nearly lost through arrogance. If you refuse, the trust will be executed as written and you will lose everything." I let the silence stretch until it thinned to a jagged thread. Derek started to speak, pleading, bargaining, then stopped as I lifted my hand. Mercy, I realized in that suspended second, could be its own kind of domination. To have power and give conditions shaped like lessons was to ensure enemies became allies, begrudgingly or not. Grandpa's mouth twitched like a satisfied judge. Elias's cane tapped the table twice, approving. The cousins, humbled, agreed on trembling lips to the terms. They promised to learn, to sweat, to scrub, to dig. They swore oaths they had no reason to keep other than to save what remained of their reputations. Outside, in the cold dark, something shifted, a hum, a sound like motors being turned off, a fleet of privileges pausing on my command. And then, as the house settled and the cousins' promises hung in the air, Grandpa rose and stepped aside. He looked at Elias, then at me, and in a voice softer than the rest he said, "He was always meant to be the steward, not the squanderer." Elias nodded once, and in that nod there was goodbye. I turned quickly, half expecting the mentor to smile or to offer further instruction. The lanterns threw long shadows, and the farmhouse seemed to hold its breath. Elias had been my anvil and my spark, the architect of the plan that had unmade pride into penance. I reached for him to say thank you, to ask the questions that had lodged in my throat like seeds waiting to break, but the chair beside the ledger was empty. Only the cane remained, leaning against the table like a marker left in haste. And carved into its handle, in a hand I now recognized as older than any of our names, was the mantra Elias had made me speak until it became part of me. They mocked me at the table. They will kneel at my door. Outside, in the gravel, a line of figures formed, my cousins, small and ragged in their new humility, waiting for the keyholder's verdict. The lantern light picked out their faces, each one a portrait of regret and hunger. I stepped toward the door, ledger clutched under my arm, the weight of choice heavy and real. My hand closed around the iron handle. I paused, breath on the threshold, and then, The story stopped at the sound of my own pulse, and the night held its answer like a coin tossed into dark water. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to us.